Hello, and welcome to this tutorial where I'll show you in InDesign how you can save a PostScript file that will preserve your separations for your spot colors. So right now, in a very disorganized fashion, I have a lot of information on here of graphics that are created using specific spot colors. We can see over by my swatches that I have a Pantone Process Blue, a Pantone Orange, and a Pantone Green. And as we know with spot colors, I have to make sure that they show up on their own plates when they print out, meaning that in a process method, they would use yellow ink hitting a paper and then blue ink on top of it to make that green. But if I wanted that green to be the same green each and every time and not have to worry of what happens when the yellow ink runs out, then like Lowe's or Home Depot, I would pre-mix this green ink and it would hit the same green each and every time. That would mean that, again, it's got to show up on its own green plate, and it can't show up on a plate that has blue and yellow. So essentially, it's going to be one color, and it can't be a combination of colors. But I want to make sure of that before I send it to print. So I want to proof the file and make sure that the file, the colors, show up on their own plate. The way I can do that with InDesign is I go to File, Print. And when this print dialog box shows up, under the printer, up here at the top, I'm going to select PostScript file. At your house, you may have, if a printer is plugged into your computer, you may have your printer show up. If you're at school, then again, you may see the school printers show up. But you should always have an option called PostScript file. And for this process, that's what I'm going to select. For PPD, it doesn't really matter what printer you select. You can select your printer at home and it'll be just fine. Because the plates, as I'll show you in a minute, they're going to show up in black and white. They won't show up in color anyway. So the PPD just needs to be selected to the printer that shows up. Under the general settings, I'm going to want to make sure I select all my pages, or if the page only shows up in one in one color, then I'll just select the page that the colors show up on. So for example, if I only wanted to do just this one page, then I would select the page range of the first page, which is page 1, is where it starts, and then it would end at 1. So I would put start at 1, end at 1. We'll just go ahead and click all, though, to show you how it works. Under Setup, I have this set to 8.5 by 11 because this is a small sheet of paper, but there's information that's going to print on the outside of it that I need a larger sheet of paper to print. If this were an 8.5 by 11 document, I would have to select a page larger than 8.5 by 11 so that all the information shows up. So just kind of keep in mind that when you're printing separations, you're always going to want select for paper size, a sheet of paper that's bigger than your original document size. I'm going to change the orientation to portrait because that's what I'm set up here in portrait. And I'm going to keep the scale to 100% because this is a small postcard, and if I blow it up to fill the entire page, I'm going to lose a lot of information that appears on the outside. For marks and bleeds, you can check all of your marks and bleeds, but then uncheck the bleed marks, because we're going to use the document's bleed settings instead rather than letting it pick it at random for us. And then last, for output, under color, you're going to, by default, it will say composite. It may say composite CMYK or composite RGB, but we're going to want to select separations. The rest of this we can leave to default settings, but under inks, we have unchecked the 3 process colors, cyan, magenta, and yellow. Again, I don't want this green to be made up of cyan and yellow. I want it to be its own plate, green. Same thing with this orange. I don't want the orange to show up by using magenta laid on top of yellow. I want it to be a pre-mixed orange. Black is always black, so we can leave process black. But if you open this up and all these little printer icons are seen, then you're going to want to go to process cyan and click the icon. And see how it disappears when I click it? That means when I save this file, it's not going to consider those guys, and it'll only print my spot colors. Once I have all these settings, I'm going to click Save, and we'll just save it into my hard drive. And like that, we're done. So now, if I go to my hard drive, I can take that PostScript file, and I'm just going to bring it into Acrobat so that we can see our file. When I was referring to information that's going to appear on the outside of the page, this is what I was talking about. And you should recognize this from the handout that I provided talking about printer terminology. You can see your trim marks, you can see your color bars, registration marks, file information, including the date and the time. But also, this is what we refer to as a plate, meaning that everything that's black on that front side of the postcard is on this plate. So when I go to my next plate, everything that is Pantone Process Blue is the only thing that's showing up on this plate. No black is showing up on the blue plate. My Pantone Green, the only thing that's green, shows up on this page. And my orange, the only thing that shows up is this. And then finally for the back of my page, the only thing everything that's black or even shades of gray show up on my black page. And this is how we set up files, a PostScript file from InDesign, so that we can check our spot colors.